2023 meeting. Is there any changes or any additions to this portion of the agenda?
So move.
It's been properly moved and seconded. I second it. Madam Clerk, can you call for the vote?
Pugh,
Here, yes.
Walker.
Yes.
Motion approved.
All right. That brings us to item number 3, the adoption of the agenda. Mr. Administrator, is there any adds or deletions to the current agenda?
No requested changes, Mr. Chair.
All right. Can I get a motion for approval?
So move, Mr. Chair.
Second. It's been properly moved and seconded. Madam Clerk, can you call for the vote, please?
Pugh,
Yes.
Walker.
Yes.
Motion approved.
All right. That brings us to item number 4, items for discussion. Item A1 is director hiring process. Mr. Administrator, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to show you a PowerPoint presentation, and we'll kind of follow that presentation, which will be consistent with how you have items listed on the agenda. And the first one does start with the hiring process. And so what I want to do is just kind of show you and talk a little bit about, what that looks like. So specifically, the position we're going to talk about is the detention director position. Through this process, a little while ago, I provided some information to the Department of Corrections and communicated to them that I wanted to move forward with our process of actually getting a permanent director. I've maintained conversations with the Department of Corrections through their compliance person to kind of give them a heads up on kind of where things stood with our process. So I have been in contact with the department, and that's good, in good standing. But I wanted to just talk a little bit, just very briefly, about what was posted for this position so that you all can understand the type of individual that we were trying to seek to be interested in this particular position. All right, I'm back on now. So this position as a director would report directly to the county administrator. Just for the benefit of the committee, the way the structure works in South Carolina is that if you have a detention facility that is not run by the sheriff, then according to the minimum jail standards, that facility reports to the county administrator. And his position, for the purposes of that conversation, is called a facility administrator. That facility administrator is then tasked with hiring a facility manager. And while we don't necessarily call it that, that is what you would commonly hear your jail administrator or your detention center director. So that is the position that we're talking about. And so that position would report to the county administrator, both kind of by minimum standards and probably just by good practice. That has not always been the practice of Richland County. There was an assistant county administrator that reported to the county administrator, and that assistant county administrator had under, in this case, his purview, the detention facility. But as we've learned more about this process and become more aware, we've modified and made necessarily changes to adopt that structure more specifically. So this particular individual would report directly to the county administrator. One of the things that we asked for is that we said that this individual needs to have a verified education, needs to have at least a bachelor's degree, and we listed areas that we thought would be appropriate for this individual to have a background in. That would include criminal justice, law enforcement, social science, or something that was closely related to those fields as a part of that degree. We also talked about that we wanted this individual to have preferably some years of experience under his or her belt, operating within the detention facility, that we just thought it would be good if we could do that. A little experience would be helpful. Some of the other qualifications talked about age limitations for this individual, need to be a U.S. citizen, need to have basically a clean record as it relates to criminal history, credit, polygraph, employment, a driving history, potentially all part of that background, medical, physical examination, potentially with drug testing being a part of that. And one of the other key things would need to be driving specifically because of their work. So these are the things that we kind of put out to try to get individuals to be interested in our position. And here are the things that we said we'd be looking at as kind of a baseline focus. And so as a result of that, we received a number of applicants through this process. in trying to hire the director position. And that process then led me to talking to a few individuals in the form of, their interest, whether that's an interview, whether just a general conversation, and me trying to look at, okay, what are the next steps? And so now that we're talking about the next steps, the potential, bringing on of a jail director or detention center director, there gets a little bit more detail, and it's personnel specific. And one of the things I've talked about before to the council, and I think maybe to the committee, is that we generally don't discuss specific personnel matters in a public setting. So, Mr. Chair, there is some information that I would like to share with the body. I don't think it'll take a long time. I have the Director of Human Resources here, and I would request, along with myself, Director of Human Resources, and certainly the county attorney, that you allow us to speak to you in executive session to discuss some very specific information related to personnel or related to the detention center director position.
Yes, Mr. Wright, I'm assuming a motion for executive session would be appropriate, although it's not listed on the agenda.
That's correct.
All right, at this time, I make a motion to go into executive session.
Second.
It's been moved and I'm sorry. I'm so accustomed to doing that.
It's been moved and probably seconded. Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's been moved and probably seconded. Madam Clerk, can you call for the vote, please?
Pugh,
Yes.
Walker.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. We're now in executive session. Second. It's been moved and properly seconded. Madam Clerk, can you call for the vote, please?
Pugh,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
English. Motion approved.
All right. We just returned from executive session where we were discussing the personnel matter. No actions were taken. Mr. Brown, you recognize?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe the county attorney wanted to cite for the
I'm sorry.
record some information.
I'm sorry, Mr. Wright, you recognize?
Yes. Just want to say that we did go into executive session pursuant to SC Code 30-4-70A1 to discuss a personnel matter.
And thank you for that, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the opportunity for the committee allowing me to give you that specific personnel information. One of the things I want to do as we kind of go forward, I just want the committee to know that when it comes to the specific details of personnel matters, I'm really going to refrain from talking about those details in a public fashion, just so we can make sure that we keep those individuals and their related information in a proper context. So moving on from the hiring process, one of the things that I can share with you is we'll be completing that here really soon. Like I said, I had a conversation with the Department of Corrections. They are aware of the process that I'm going through and have been notified and have not had any issues or shared any issues with where we currently are in that process. And ultimately, the goal is to complete the hiring of a detention center director, and I feel confident that we'll be able to do that. Moving on to the next item in the presentation. Is it on the presentation side? Okay. Let's see if it'll roll back. Yeah, you're okay with that? Okay. So if you go to the next screen for me, it was working before. So the next thing we're going to talk about is just the infrastructure updates, and specifically we're going to focus on the kitchen. Then look at some housing units, which include the special housing unit. We commonly spoke about that as SHU, and then the Yankee. And talking about the kitchen, I wanted to update you on the retail food inspections that we had received associated with the kitchen. And so if you look there in your packet, what you will see is Summit Food Services is our food provider. And have been for a number of years. That's the entity within Alvinus Glen Detention Center that kind of manages the operating of the kitchen. So most recently, Alvinus Glen Detention Center's food service operation was audited by DHEC on July 19, 2023, and received a satisfactory grade of an A. And not only did that happen on July 19th, but if you go back and take a look at the previous inspections, you will notice that we received and have maintained an A since February 2023. So that period of time where the county took steps to address and remediate issues within the facility related to the kitchen, we received a positive grade in the form of an A, and we've been able to maintain that. And so the next thing I want to show you is what that actually looks like. It's not turning it for me. It used to work now. You want to change it to the next one to see if it'll slide over for me? All right. And did you go to? What we're going to show you now, and this information is available online. It's a part of the packet. If individuals click on the link within the document, this is a look at the detention center kitchen before the renovation. So these are the before pictures. So I'll just take just a few moments to kind of walk you through the kitchen. So for those individuals who are not able to actually visit the facility, here's what that looks like. And we'll just walk around just a little bit. And again, these are the before view of the kitchen. Okay. Turn us around here. All right, and just a few more looks here, Mr. Chair, then I'll take us back to what it looks like now. All right, and if you give us at the moment, right now, I understand this is not being shown on Zoom, so we want to be able to just to make sure that's mirrored. While we're doing that, Mr. Chair, just want to remind you and members of the committee that, again, this information as a part of the presentation, if you go to the county's website and you were to click on the agenda and look at the agenda packet, you will see in the packet where it talks about the before and after, and you click on that link, and then those individuals can look at this same information just the way we're looking at it now. So go ahead, sir.
Brown, so you're basically saying that constituents can go to our website and they can see this virtual picture of Alvin S. Glenn's kitchen?
Yes, sir.
Before and after?
That's right. They can
Okay.
walk through it like you and I are walking through it now.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. And so the next thing we'll do is we'll take a look at the after. So just quick, again, this is the before. You know, you're looking around there in the facility, and then we go to the after. So as you can see, it's a dramatic difference. Okay. All right. So, and we'll be finished with this one in just a moment. It looks like just as we're trying to walk through this at the same time live, that maybe individuals may not be able to, as we're clicking through this separate port, that maybe it's not showing up for them. But again, want to emphasize that they can view it, they can see it if they can't see it live with us right now. But this reflects the information that's current in the kitchen, right? So again, a very dramatic difference. And again, want to just say that, you know, we appreciate the financial support. We appreciate the labor as well for those individuals who came in there. But this is a result of county council providing funding and allowing us to take these steps to remediate the concerns that were present in the kitchen. And, you know, that you can see from, I believe, the work here that it is a dramatic difference. And that reflects not only the behavior of what's done in this particular project, but that's the mentality, that's the focus, that's the level of resource that we're going to be doing throughout projects within the detention center. So what you have here now is a newly renovated and newly equipped, in many instances, facility, which would be able to last us beyond a few years, right? This is a long-term opportunity, and we addressed it that way. So I won't spend a lot of more time in this particular area, Mr. Chair, unless there's specific things you want to see. But this, again, represents a huge change from what we saw in our previous view, you know, of the kitchen. So again, much needed upgrade. You can see the flooring is completely different. You know, again, we started from the bottom and went to the top. If you look at the ceilings and then the equipment itself, complete movement and activity associated with that. So, Mr. Chair, I'll take any questions that you have or members of the committee, but we are proud of the efforts that have been put forth, and we're looking to maintain the facility in the current condition and maintain that grade that we have with Department of Health and Environmental Control.
Mr. Brown, I want to say this. I had an opportunity to visit this facility before and see the before pictures in person. And then I had an opportunity to visit the facility and see the after pictures. And I want to commend you and your staff for working diligently to try to get a long-term solution. I don't think you said that part loud enough. A long-term solution for us moving forward with improving Alvin S. Glenn. One question I would like to ask, since we're on the infrastructure part of A2, is what are we doing to address the aesthetics of the facility on the outside?
Yes, sir. So right now we are really deep into taking care of everything on the inside. We haven't started addressing the outside. A lot of the interior areas where the individuals that are housed there, are working there, are seeing every day as they're in there, we've started there. So, Mr. Chair, we actually hadn't started on the exterior yet. There are a lot of interior components that we think are vital and that are kind of priority first. And so that's where we've started.
And I guess I should have been clear. I understand what you mean about the infrastructure, and I guess, working from the inside out is great. But I guess what I was trying to say when I speak about aesthetics, like yard maintenance, I had the opportunity to ride by the facility this past week, and we have shrubbery, just the whole landscape in itself. Are we not using those detainees to help us maintain that? Like, do we have a plan? It's really overgrown. And when you are talking about changing the culture and the mindset and the state of where we are currently with Alvin S. Glenn, those things have a lot to do with it. When you start talking about the presentation, when people come to visit, when people come to visit detainees, when lawyers come, that type of stuff. What are we doing to improve that aesthetics?
Yeah, so I'll to the question that you asked about, are detainees allowed to participate? I'll let Interim Director Harvey speak to that just to make sure I don't misspeak. But what I will say is one of the things that we've identified and that we are trying to address is the county has many properties. And over the time, we've not always kept up with the maintenance personnel necessary to have all of these properties. So it's one of those things where, we have to make sure, to your point, that we can get a rotation of properties that we're using and have either staff or have funding that can get outside parties to come and address that for us. So that is something that we can address, Mr. Chair. And we'll certainly make sure that we put that down as a next continued step for external maintenance and external uplift for the facility.
Absolutely. I'm definitely not telling you how to conduct your staff and what they should be doing, but when we have the spotlight on us on a specific facility or entity within Richland County, we need to make sure that we're covering all our bases to make to make these improvements. And if I pull up to Alvin S. Glenn and the grass is overgrown and sidewalks are not being maintained, then I can just assume that everything else is in turmoil on the inside. And so, even with some of the things that are going on, we just want to make sure that we give us some curb appeal.
Understood.
All right, thank you, sir. So,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Harvey, you recognize, sir.
Yes, sir. To your point, it's twofold. One is we do allow detainees to come outside the building and to maintain our yard, our grass, and stuff like that. So we have been doing that. The only issue, we're very cautious about the type of detainee, because all of our detainees are pretrial, meaning that they're not guilty. But however, they got to have a certain charge or less charge before they can come outside the building. That's just based on our statute. So we are very cautious about allowing them to come out, but they do come out and cut our grass and everything. So whatever you saw, hopefully if you go back today, you won't see it again. So we're definitely take care of that.
Thank you, Mr. Harvey. Continue, Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we'll move on from the kitchen renovation and talk about the housing units. If you may recall, we talked about the facility has roughly about 18 housing units, and we talked about needing to take renovations to all of those housing units, but we can't do it all at one time. And based off what we're trying to renovate, some of this stuff is time intensive. The lead times associated with the resources are a big deal. But what I want to do is I want to show you some of the steps that we're taking currently. So what you're looking right now is at one of the cells at Yankee unit, and you see the kind of the vertical structure. That is the combo insert. In the next slide, I'll show you exactly how it will look. But that combo insert, the structure where the current toilet and sink reside have to be demoed. And then this insert goes in so that the new insert that has the combo stainless steel structure goes on top of that and locks it into place. In addition to that, you see some door flaps. Those door flaps ideally will allow individuals to not have to necessarily enter a cell for a detainee to be prepared to exit out, so they could put food through that slot if they need to. They could actually have the detainees, put their hands through there so they could be restrained if they need to bring them out and walk them to some place and the detainee is not, needs to be restrained. So it prevents, if you will, or mitigates a security concern for detainees being able to potentially throw urine and feces easily on an officer. Unfortunately, that happens in a detention environment. You have individuals sometimes who will do that, but if you have an individual through that slot, it's much harder for them to have a direct line of sight to an officer's openings in their face and their eyes and stuff of that nature, because that slide is lower. So that will hopefully mitigate some of those things and create a safer environment for those individuals when we're handling detainees who have to either be restrained or who have been known to behave in that way. So what you see there is something that is going to happen to all the doors in those cells, and for every unit that has a porcelain fixture today, the update will be the stainless steel. So what you have on the left of your screen, I believe, is what we talk about the before. That's kind of where things are now. You have the old style porcelain, and that's not safe, or it's less safe in a detention center environment. It's certainly obsolete, it's less durable, as I said, less safe. The after image of the stainless steel combo there, which is also electronically connected, it's more modern, it's more durable, and it's safer. So by way of example, you may have a detainee, and I'm not saying all detainees do this, you might have a detainee who would go into that toilet fixture and then clog it up by constantly flushing things of that nature in that fixture. Then it overflows, and now all of a sudden you have a flooded cell, and then we're getting calls saying, for example, the water's not working. Well, there may be a reason for that, but that's not being associated with that conversation. Take that same activity, you can program the new stainless steel fixtures where there's a minimum number of flushes or a maximum number of flushes that it would do at a certain time frame. So the opportunity for you to flood that unit by repeatedly flushing is less likely to happen. So not only is it a cleaner apparatus, but it also provides a level of maintenance for us that reduces, because I mean, unfortunately, somebody will find a way, but it reduces those concerns that we experience a lot today with the older, more obsolete porcelain toilet, porcelain sink fixture. So want to share that with you. Now, what I will tell you is those things have to be fabricated. So we have to have a provider fabricate those and then ship them to us. We have to then replumb as you see in the photo to the left, you can see those things are not together. So those are changes that have to be structurally made in a detention center environment. So when we talk about some of the time stamps on these issues, that's why some of this stuff takes longer, because you're talking about literally breaking up brick in the facility. You're talking about having to shift detainees throughout the facility so that you can make these necessary changes. So again, these are time-sensitive issues, but they require an extensive amount of time in order to get accomplished. And mainly it's because of the lead time on getting the actual the equipment. So I think the last time we had a conversation, we were talking about how soon we would get certain materials in, and that was during the pandemic, and then slightly after that, we were looking at 6 months at the time, where we were trying to just get toilet fixtures in that were stainless steel, that were the new thing that we're trying to put in place. So just want to kind of remind everybody that some of these things are moving at the speed of how we can get them, not at the speed in which we are operating, but the resources that we need to make the fixes, they don't come from us. And so I wanted to just share that with you, Mr. Chair, before we talk about the housing unit. Is there any questions about what I previously showed you in the Yankee unit, those renovations that were currently underway there?
Mr. Brown, can you speak to where we are currently with since these fixtures have to be fabricated, where are we currently? Are we behind on schedule? Are we on task with schedule? Can you speak to that?
Yeah, I can actually have Mr. Harvey tell us whether or not the last update that we received, if the shipment came in on time, or if we received any additional delays. Mr. Harvey, can you talk about what the vendor has told you, sir?
Yes, yes, Mr. Chair. We actually are on schedule. We talked about Yankee with the locks in the system. That will be online. It will be actually coming through in this month, August coming up. So we will be starting with the lock system. I do want to add to another point that Mr. Brown brought. If that structure that you see right there currently, and this is just going to drive home what Mr. Brown has been pointing out, is that what we're doing when you're talking about revamping and construction and everything, we're actually changing the whole structure of the jail. Meaning that the structure that we're looking at right now, that is an insert that actually helps out where detainees can't pull the toilet out of the wall. I think some of us saw in some of the previous social media where there was a toilet outside of the wall of a room. That will not happen no more because of the structure right here. That piece of equipment right there, it goes inside the wall, it get welded in, then the structure of the equipment is inserted in that. So the old model toilets, they can easily come out because they're just structurally, they're just attached to a pipe. What we're doing now is we're attaching the whole structure of the new equipment to another fixture. So basically, we are reshaping the whole jail when you talk about plumbing system.
Mr. Harvey, you kind of brought it up a little bit. Can you speak to when you just made mention of social media, seeing that specific thing on social media? Can you speak to how that unit was offline
Yes,
at the
sir.
time?
Yeah. Every housing unit, not only the housing unit, but every room that is not safe for a detainee, we literally take it offline. What does that mean, take offline? Literally means that no one can go in that room because we stop the control system from allowing a detainee to go in there. Now, the problem is with our great detainees is they know how to bypass that system, which means that our locking system, they will compromise the locking system and go in that room to do whatever they want to do. And that's what happened in that situation.
I appreciate it. All right. Not Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, Mr. Administrator.
Yes, sir.
Continue.
A few more slides, Mr. Chair. So this is some of the photos of the special housing unit that we talked about, SHU. Again, the renovations have begun in that housing unit. You can see the flooring is being renovated. I don't know if you can see the up photo at the individual standing up, but the interior of the units are all being renovated. In addition to, again, plumbing, and some of these units require lighting as well. But all of these renovations are things that, again, are currently underway. There are specific steps that the county is taking, again, to remediate these housing units. SHU and Yankee are the first two units that we're renovating at this level. But ultimately, all of these units we expect to have a new look, a new feel, a new design, if you will, that again reflects almost like what you see in the kitchen in terms of the level of change that we're putting into these areas. So, and again, I can't overemphasize that this is not possible without the resource allocation that is approved by County Council to make these changes. But as we talk about going forward, there are 18 units. And those units are not all free of individuals, so we're not able to just shut down and do everything at one time because it's not logistically possible. But what we have done is we have 2 units right now that we're working through. Those units get up and running, we'll be able to shift individuals and then go to other housing units and make those renovations as well, which again includes plumbing, includes lighting, includes cell locks, all of those things in these areas.
Oh, just to have plain talk, Mr. Brown, basically what you're saying is that what you guys are currently doing in the renovation part of Alvin S. Glenn will be mirrored across the facility as you complete one, relocate detainees, and start work on another unit. That's going to be a process until we're completely 100% done at Alvin S. Glenn.
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I want to skip to security updates within the facility. Some of the things that I'll talk about now are just general information. If you visit the facility, you would have the opportunity to see other security updates related to things that are not appropriate to discuss because it would jeopardize the safety or security of individuals in the facility. We're not going to talk about in an open session. But one of the things that we've done is there's been an update to the security within the courtrooms in the Alvin S. Glenn Detention Center. And so what you have is you have individuals that within the facility have to attend bond court. And so what you have is you have a separation of detainees from the other personnel that have to be a part of that process, where to before, that did not exist in all parts of the courtrooms that we have there. So now what you have is that natural separation. So it may seem like a big deal for someone who is not, working in there, but for individuals who have to go in there, we want them to also feel safe and secure, as they're carrying out their duties on behalf of the judicial process within the Alvin S. Glenn Detention Center. So, that what you see is a picture of that, what we're calling a security wall, which again just separates the court personnel and related individuals from those detainees who are waiting to be seen or have their day with the magistrate. So that's the update related to that particular item. Other updates, Mr. Chair, just want to give you a quick overview of last year versus this year as compared to detainee count. So I think it's kind of blocked a little bit by the information on that I'm looking at. But what you would simply see there is when you look at the total count, you will see what the average is, from the month of June 2022. And then if you take a look at 2023, so that total, that average was, I think, down at the bottom for like 643 in June of 22. And then if you go to June of 2023, okay, stop clicking for me. Can I go to next on here? How can I go next? Can we go next? Thank you. You can see that from June 2023 as compared to June 2022, you can see that averages up. It was 643, I believe, in June of 22. In June of 23, that average looks like 706. So you can see an increase in population from year over year. Again, just another quick count, July 2022, you can see that the average count is showing to be about 650. Look at the bottom of that. And if you go to July 2023, you can see that even though we're not necessarily through with the month, that averages up to 720. So I just wanted to give you general insight as to how things are trending within the facility to give you a good feel for the count that we have in the detention facility. Are there any questions there, Mr. Chair?
No, sir. Any
Okay.
colleagues, questions?
No, Mr. Chair.
A few other items here. I know we run out of time, Mr. Chair. But from time to time, it's unfortunate, but what you have is you have individuals that try to find a way to have contraband enter into the facility. And Alvin S. Glenn Detention Center is no different. I know there's been a number of articles that have been posted for detention facilities throughout the state of South Carolina who are struggling with this same issue, where you have contraband that is entering into the facility. You have everything from individuals who are making bad decisions. So if you have a detainee that's somehow convinced a detention officer to break the law along with them, to bring in contraband, it's very important for everybody to know that we're going to go through the process. You're going to have your day in court, but we're going to look to bring you in and arrest you and have you detained just like any other person that's broken the law. And so if you bring contraband into the facility as a detention officer, the penalty for that is, you're going to wind up finding yourself behind bars. And so that's one of the things that has happened. You've seen us talk about detention officers who've made bad choices, but you've also seen how we've handled that. We've worked with the appropriate law enforcement agencies to try to remedy that issue. You've also had individuals, and I'll show you here on this next screen, you've also had individuals who invest in drones. Those drones fly over the detention center and they try to drop contraband. We've been fortunate enough to, sometimes get lucky to retrieve those drones, but that's not always successful. So people trying to find a way to introduce contraband into the facility is an ongoing issue. It is not just an internal issue. There are literally people who try to throw things over the fence, drop things over there. All of that stuff happens. So it's an ongoing battle. But what you find here and what you see in some of these photos are confiscated items that our detention officers have been able to confiscate as a result of their efforts in trying to win this fight against contraband into the facility. Are there any questions about that, Mr. Chair?
No, sir.
Yes, Mr. Brown, do have a question.
Yes, sir.
As far as, and if you can't answer this question, or if this question can't be answered because it may pertain to security, I understand, and I can get an answer offline. But do we have officers that patrol the perimeter of the facility, I guess, to stave off these sort of attempts? My assumption is if violators are aware that there's some sort of security perimeter at the detention facility that may stave off or may serve as a deterrence for those individuals who would engage in this kind of activity. But then again, I know SCDC has the same issue at their facility statewide. So can someone maybe speak to that? And if not, if that question is more appropriate offline, the answer rather for that question is more appropriate offline, that'll suffice for me as well.
So the answer to your question is yes, Mr. Chair. We do have staff that are aware of this and try to patrol. That's how some of this stuff gets caught. But the volume in which it happens and the frequency at which it happens is part of the issue, because you have individuals who are doing this constantly, and we don't have. I wish we could. We don't have the personnel currently to have 24/7 patrol just around the facility on the outside, and so some of these folks, they know that these agencies are struggling with personnel and that you can't keep somebody out there all the time, so they just try to find and hopefully get lucky. They just drop things all times of day and night. And sometimes we are out there during those patrols and able to catch them, and sometimes we're able to catch them before they're able to enter into the facility. We have detainees who will break out secure structures in terms of like the windows, and just over time eventually break those and go out and try to fish for these items. What you see in this photo here it's hard for you to see, but basically what you have is you have someone who was compromised the detention glass frame over time, and then taking those, broomstick, fashioned to basically like a fishing rod, and try to fish out this contraband. So again, it's surprising how adaptive these individuals are to figuring out ways to compromise whatever we put in place. So we're going to continue to try to raise up additional levels of security, but I want you to see the level that of effort that individuals put into breaking the law. And so I get amazed from time to time, but we have folks that continuously take bad steps, even if they are behind the detention center walls. Mr. Chair,
ahead,
I'm
sir.
almost done here, sir. Again, this just more just showing you the types of things that find their way into the facility and what we try to do to mitigate those things. So again, not something that you would think happens, but it does. What you have here are weapons that are fashioned in the facility. These, some people are gonna say, well, how do these things happen? You literally have like light fixtures that detainees have compromised, broken, then taken and created these weapons. And you would say, well, Mr. Brown, why are you sharing that? Partly because sometimes you get complaints about, well, the county, the lighting is poor, or my room doesn't have working outlets or working lights. Well, that may be the case, but it wasn't because the facility just didn't work. You have individuals who have literally torn down the infrastructure that you put in place to provide for them. Is that every individual? No, ma'am, no, sir, it's not. However, that does happen, and that these individuals create these dangerous weapons that they use to harm each other sometimes and threaten other individuals as well. So again, just kind of showing you some of the things that those men and women who work at the detention center are dealing with. Just a brief recap, Mr. Chair. The county administrator and county council have approved critical areas of the jail to receive upgrades and to ensure staff and detainees are safe and are receiving the services they are required to receive by law. The kitchen was one of the first infrastructure projects that was approved. We saw that for renovation. It's substantially complete. We've also talked about renovating other housing units. We talked about the locking system that's about to come online and get started here in August. And so the last thing I'll leave you with, Mr. Chair, on this slide is that the county has taken immediate and significant steps to address needed improvements. But long-term problems and improvements require long-term strategies and solutions. We're still really very early in our journey to reshape the culture within and surrounding the facility, as well as the physical structure of the facility itself. There is no quick fix to these problems. It's going to take commitment, steadfastness, resiliency, and the continued infusion of resources to make Alvarez Glen Detention Center a facility we can be proud of. And unfortunately, we found out that there is no such thing as a one-time fix when it comes to operating the detention facility. So when you look at some of these things that you've given money to and maybe you've improved, and you say, well, wait a minute, I thought we fixed that. You probably did. Unfortunately, somebody tore it up again. So thank you, Mr. Chair. I know it's been a tight timeline here, but I appreciate the opportunity to provide this update, and we'll continue to do that going forward.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Mr. Administrator. I want to commend you and your staff for your diligent efforts to make sure that we solve the issues that we have and continue to move forward in a positive direction. Do my colleagues have anything to say? Ms. English, you're recognized.
Thank you. I just always have to say, I know when we're dealing with a very difficult area to address that always has negative connotations, I just really want to give the staff of the detention center, the Richland County staff that's working with them, and this council, just a huge applaud just for the efforts in and taking on the onus of this task, and just getting residents to understand that we care about the safety and welfare of every resident in Richland County. And we really want to move in a positive direction, just like everyone is saying. And as we're moving through these phases and stages, just making sure that everyone has what they need. So thank you all so much. And thank you to this council and Mr. Harvey, you and your staff. Thank you so much.
Chair Walker, you recognize.
Thank you, Chairman Pugh. And I would just like to, say that I share the same sentiments expressed by Chairman Pugh as well as Councilwoman English. And Mr. Brown, I certainly commend you and your team for all the improvements that have been made at the detention center. And I guess my other takeaway from all of this is that fixing the detention center or getting it where it needs to be is a process. It's a journey. It's not an event. And I think it would be good to remind the public of that. And also I think it'd be good to perhaps even sort of reset or recalibrate the expectations of council when it comes to the detention center. So that way we continue to understand that It's not a quick fix. It's not an event, but it is a process. So again, thank you to you and your team. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for indulging me.
Absolutely. If all minds and hearts are clear, can I get a motion for adjournment?
Move to adjourn.
About to say a motion for amen. But second.
So it's been moved and properly second. Madam Clerk, can you take the vote, please?
Pugh,
Yes,
Walker,
Yes.
English.
Yes.
Motion approved.
we are now adjourned.